Education. Are we moving in the right direction? A dissemination of research conducted by Peter Bishop in partial fulfillment of Education 6590, Memorial University of Newfoundland, Labrador. So how has the education system been using multimedia in the classroom? There have been many ways: audiovisual equipment, computers, simulations, video games, and virtual environments, just to name a few. Today, multimedia can be defined as a medium that integrates computer technology or some sort of audiovisual equipment. It has been a long-standing argument as to whether the education system benefits from the use of technology in the classroom. My research deals with the use of virtual environments in the classroom specifically. So, what exactly are virtual environments? Well, by their basic definition, they would be considered a computer-generated environment that allows the user to be present and interact with the environment. The user is given or develops an avatar which represents them as they navigate the synthetic environment. Virtual environments, or at least their ancestors, have been around for quite some time. They have their roots dating back to the 1970s, where users navigated virtual environments that were basically text definitions or descriptions of where they were. Since those early days, virtual environments have developed as computing power increased. Today's virtual environments are media rich in sight and sound and can now be experienced in 3 dimensions. Of late, there has been research conducted into the use of 3D multi-user virtual environments, abbreviated movies, and how they may be used in the classroom. So what exactly are multi-user virtual environments, also abbreviated MUVES or movies? Nelson Erlson 2008 defines movies as modern 3D multi-user virtual environments offering immersive, rich visual and auditory experiences to their users. In them, users guide computer-based avatars through vast virtual worlds filled with realistic buildings, objects, characters, and the avatars of other players. They allow multiple users to navigate the virtual environment at the same time together. The users can see and interact with the other users of the environment. Communication may be text-based or by a voice over Internet Protocol or VoIP. Research is being conducted as to whether these environments can be used as areas for experiential learning, where students can carry out labs, field trips, etc., without leaving their classrooms, and at the same time learning in a collaborative environment with their classmates or possibly students from other places throughout the world. So, after a thorough review of the available literature, I decided to delve deeper in the use of multi-user virtual environments in the classroom, and more specifically, the science classroom. This led me to a research question that needed to be explored. That is, what is the effect of the use of multi-user virtual environments or movies on student achievement in the intermediate science? After my research had been completed, I identified a number of theories from which the theoretical framework for movies is built upon. Firstly, constructivist learning theory. That is, students' learning occurs through doing as opposed to stand and deliver methods of teaching. A constructivist approach to teaching allows students to experience and formulate. For example, students in a science class based on constructivist theory would formulate their own hypothesis and design their own experiments. Experiential learning theory and project-based learning theory are both based on constructivist learning theory. Experiential learning occurs by doing. Students experience, for example, scientific phenomena firsthand through a field trip or such things similar. Students learn from their environment and those around them. Project-based learning occurs when students are given a problem and they answer that problem through the tasks necessary to complete a project. And finally, collaborative learning occurs when two or more students learn as a team. Collaborative learning allows students to complete tasks using the collective mind as opposed to the individual mind. This allows learning from each other to occur. A number of movies were identified as ones that have been used in the classroom. The first is that of Second Life. This is a virtual environment that has been used extensively by post-secondary institutions. It acts as a virtual meeting place for students and teachers where they can collaborate on ongoing projects. A very interesting project where the use of movies is being injected into the science curriculum was that of River City. River City is specifically made for the junior high science curriculum in the United States. Students use the movie, which allows 3 levels of guidance depending on a student's abilities. Students have to determine, through interaction with the virtual environment, what is wrong with the water in the town and what is making the people sick. Students create a hypothesis through talking with the members of the town, test their hypothesis by carrying out virtual lab tests. The third movie is that of Quest Atlantis, which has now been renamed the Atlantis Remix Project. This is an international learning and teaching project that uses 3D multi-user virtual environments to immerse children ages 9 to 16 in educational tasks. Emerging from a decade of research with Quest Atlantis, the project now combines strategies used in commercial games with lessons from educational research on learning and motivation. The Atlantis Remix project allows students to travel to virtual places to play educational adventures, talk with other users and mentors, build virtual persona, and eventually create their own games. Over the past 4 years, 50,000 students from 6 different continents have participated in Quest Atlantis. Some of the literature uncovered during this research tested whether scientific inquiry can be conducted through the use of movies. Learning by way of scientific inquiry is basically learning through scientific method. This method of teaching and learning has been shown to increase student achievement in science. Scientific method is something that science teachers as a whole are fairly comfortable with and have used in their own classrooms. In research conducted by Nelson and Kettlehut, they suggest that movies can be used to teach hard-to-learn concepts through scientific inquiry. After research was conducted, a number of potential affordances of movies were uncovered. There are times when an experiment in science may simply be too dangerous or time-consuming to be completed within the confines of a school or school day. Lab resources may not be available to carry out a particular experiment or test. For example, gel electrophoresis is a test used in biology to allow pieces of a genome to move down a gel electrophoresis plate. This is not material that is common to everyday school labs and can be easily carried out in the confines or the virtual environment of a movie. Students are able to witness changing environments as well, chemical systems, etc., since time does not have to be chronological in virtual environments. Students are able to see the results of tests they have conducted very quickly. This can provide a time-saving opportunity for teachers. In some of the movies, such as the project River City, students are able to interact with live experts in their field. That is, some of the people within the virtual environment are avatars for a person who has knowledge to answer questions that students may have about the task at hand. The use of movies is also cost effective when compared to other types of technology that could be purchased for a classroom. Essentially, teachers, students need access to computers with internet access and common hardware. There may be costs associated with the use of some movies, but the cost seems to be reasonable. Of course, many constraints of movies were also identified. One possible constraint was that of cognitive loading. Research suggests that the complex media-rich environment that a movie provides may actually cause distraction for students. There are so many things happening concurrently to enhance the feeling of actually being in the environment that they may actually diminish the ability of the movie to cause learning. Communication is also an issue between users. On one hand, some movies use text-based communication, which can pose a disadvantage to users with poor typing, grammar, and spelling. On the other hand, some movies use VoIP or voice over Internet Protocol, which may add to cognitive load mentioned previously. There is the possibility that students' learning will not be increased since they have been saturated with technology from a very young age, and that movies just provide one more form of technology with which they are already accustomed to. Computer access in schools may pose a problem. Many schools are not equipped with sufficient computers or sufficient numbers of computers to accommodate the students in various classes. The computers do need to have a minimum hardware requirement, and this may not be possible in all schools. Finally, movies, especially initially, will be very time-consuming for both teachers and students to learn how to use. Teachers would have to have sufficient PD or professional development and time spent in the environment themselves to become efficient in their use. Students would have to be given time to become familiar with their virtual environments and the capabilities or commands of that environment. After thorough research of the literature, the answer to my original research question was mixed. There are many articles that dealt with how the use of movies can affect motivation and engagement of students, but less in terms of its effects on achievement. Gains in student achievement were reported in a number of papers. Research showed gains in achievement when using the movie River City. The authors found that when students who were taught using a movie are compared to those taught by traditional means, there was no difference on a normal assessment. They did, however, report gains in achievement when students were evaluated using a test designed to test higher-order thinking skills. Students using River City were reported to produce gains of 32 to 35% in biological concepts when compared to the control gains of 17%. Researchers using the movie EcoMovie also reported increases in student achievement on pre- and post-test scores. Quest Atlantis has been shown to increase student achievement as well, as demonstrated by higher test scores as compared to using regular textbook curricula on performance-based tests in grades 6 to 8 science. Work completed by Johnson Glenberg et al. 2009 on 72 at-risk grade 9 students suggest 3D virtual environments lead to a greater academic success in academically challenged students. The results showed approximately a 20% increase in students' grades on post-test scores. To the contrary, there were also a number of works in the literature cited that gave no change in achievement or less achievement when compared to traditional classroom. In research completed by Aneta, Minogue, Holmes, and Cheng 2009, 130 high school students used a virtual environment called MEGA, or Multiplayer Educational Gaming Application, that allowed them to review Mendelian genetics principles through its use. In this environment, the teacher is the sole author and creator of the program. The control group was taught by what is referred to as business as usual in the research. The authors found that more learning did not occur by the experimental group of students learning through the use of the virtual environment. In a PhD dissertation by Maris 2012, the author found contradictory results in the study of underachieving gifted grade 7 students learning science. The experimental group, which used River City, did not perform better than those students in the control group who did not use the movie as part of their learning. Finally, in research conducted using the movie Second Life to teach intermediate genetics concepts, there were gains comparing pre-test and post-test scores of those students who used the Second Life virtual environment with and without teaching of genetics by traditional means. In this study, all students were allowed to use the virtual environment to study genetics. One group was also taught by traditional means in conjunction with the movie. Gains involved were essentially the same for both groups. So finally we arrive at the question many teachers ask. Is there anything to say that these virtual environments are any better than traditional teaching? We can all set our minds at ease. It doesn't look like we will be replaced by computers anytime soon. Cognitive processing of students can only happen at a set rate, regardless of the media used to present material. The bottom line is this: according to Bellflower 2011, he suggests that traditional teaching methods are at least as effective as 21st century methods. There are a number of topics that were uncovered during the research that certainly warrant further investigation. Cognitive load theory certainly needs to be more deeply understood before anyone can rubber stamp the use of movies. Movies are extremely rich in video and sound, and thus require a lot of processing on our brain's part. Research has shown that the increase in cognitive load by movies may possibly have a negative effect on learning. Movies are produced to be media-rich in an effort to make them more lifelike. This very effort may actually oppose what an educational movie is intended for: learning. Work also must be completed into how we determine to what extent, if any, movies work as an educational tool. Comparing paper-based curriculum to media-rich movies is essentially like comparing apples and oranges. Researchers need to find a better way to test if movies are working. The comparison groups need to be much more closely related before we can draw any substantial conclusions. In conclusion, from my perspective, the results for achievement by way of movies is far from definitive, either for or against. A great deal more research needs to be completed before significant conclusions can be drawn. There is no approach for education that will benefit all students. Generally, it's one size fits most. The use of movies is just one of the assets that teachers can use in our daily attempt to engage learners. We need to find a balance between traditional methods and incorporating technology into our teachings. Movies seem to lead to achievement at the same levels as traditional teaching methods. No negative effects on learning have been reported. This means it cannot be added to the repertoire of available teaching tools, to be used as another possibility in reaching some students that are otherwise hard to reach. Teaching is certainly not one size fits all, nor should it be treated as such.